ways of doing that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and the thing is, there is a lot of thought goes into what we do and a lot of science behind it. And actually, most of the top guys at World's Strongest Man are actually really, really intelligent guys as well. You know, when it comes to training, they're all very knowledgeable, and we all sort of know a lot about how our bodies work, which perhaps a general gym goer doesn't know, because we spend so much time educating ourselves to do that. And I think with the CrossFit, where they are trying to educate them into the type of lifting we do and understand it, it does definitely have some carryover for the popularity of Strongman in Britain.
Yeah. Ed, what about you, man? I mean, you came from a swimming background, right? How on earth how did swimming breed to this?
A good question.
Dude, it's insane.
I know it's insane. Obviously, swimming's an all-round sort of all-over body workout, and I could, you know, I was sort of like 15 years old at high school, and I was 15 stone and 6 foot. You know, I just always it just give me that really good base to sort of transform it into, you know, that all-over body strength. Just made sense to go into Strongman.
Yeah, I mean, because when we look at the correlation of swimming, it's water, right? You're just pushing force. I mean, I can understand these two guys. They have like major competitive sports, like, but swimming though, it's like, how does it go from swimming to lifting minis in your head? You know, how does it go from that to that? Where's the transition period? What happens?
It was literally just, you know, I sort of got to the point where I outgrew my size and sort of just getting too slow at swimming. And you know, I just thought, heck it, you know, I've built such a good base, I'll hit the gym. First time I walked into a gym, and this is God's honest truth, I was benching 180 kilos. At 17 years old.
17, you were at 180?
Yeah.
I've never benched 180.
I was benching crazy weights.
I don't think I've ever lifted 180.
Yeah, but you know, you got to think about it. Swimming's one of the most intense sports to train for. I was at high school, and I was doing 2-hour training sessions in the morning at 5 in the morning, going to school, and then doing 2-hour training sessions at night. You know, 7 days a week. I was doing 14 sessions a week, 28 hours a week in the water.
Terry's nodding his head too, so if he's like, yeah, I get that.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Ed's saying, that is another thing that a lot of us, where we've come from other sports, you bring that sort of intensity and that hard-working attitude that you've had from other sports into what we do. I mean, I think all of us are probably a little bit OCD about our training, and, you know, really over the top when it comes to the finer details. And I think it's always the small things that make such a huge difference. And obviously, Ed doing all that training as a youngster, putting in that mindset where he's really focused and driven towards getting better, and that's exactly how you need to be a strongman.
Yeah, I mean, whenever we do shows like this, and a lot of people especially come to expos like this, it's about, like, some people take it about the bodybuilders, and, you know, and they don't, you know, this is like, I'm sure you've heard this in the gym, whenever you look good down the beach, nobody cares when you bench press, until you walk by. Right, so, and this is kind of cool for me, because I never get to ask those questions. It's like, oh, you benched like 17, 18, 180 kilos. What is your bench now for everyone?
Maximum bench?
Max, your 1 rep max.
Well, Strongman isn't really a powerlifting sport.
But do you ever incorporate it into your training for, like, in the gym or something?
I can guarantee these guys will probably never go for a max bench, am I right?
No, I have done in the past. I mean, my best ever is 255 kilos, but I'm probably a good bit off that at the moment. I mean, realistically, we don't actually train as much bench pressing as a lot of people would think we do. Yeah, I know Ed's a massive bench presser.
I sort of went from swimming into bodybuilding. I just did the sort of powerlifting moves, the squatting, benching, overhead, just anything static basically. I didn't do any strongman training until about 3 years ago. You know, I won UK Strongest Man, and I didn't do any strongman training. It was all just core gym work. My maximum bench at the minute is 290 kilo, but I do a maximum bench at least once a month, and I train bench every week.
Be sure, what are you saying on the bench?
Well, Ed kind of hit it on the head. Like, all of us, and Terry's pointed this out as well, you know, all of us kind of learn our bodies and what's the most important, what carries over the best for strongman, because ultimately, you know, for us, it's that's it's a very, very common question, right? It's okay, how much do you bench press? For anybody that goes to the gym, it's what, you know, what's money? It's like, you know, National Bench Press Day. Everybody's, you know. So it's just one of those things where, you know, for us, functionally, when you watch World's Strongest Man, what do we have to do? We have to press a log over our head. We have to press an axle or a dumbbell. Everything is standing press overhead, you know. And so, you know, you're going to talk to a lot of different guys, and you're going to get a lot of different opinions on bench pressing. Some feel like it carries over to their overhead very well, and they get a big carryover. You know, for me personally, the only kind of bench press that I do is I do a close grip bench, more to build up the anterior deltoids and triceps, you know. Because I feel like for me that carries over better. So, you know, for that movement, I have never ever max out a bench press, because, you know, you see these guys, and like all of us are extremely strong, right? So I've seen too many guys that have competed in strongman, and, you know, if you ever, I mean, I never ever get called out. Like, I mean, it's just one of those things where, you know, a lot of us, and I've seen even guys at the top level get called out, and, oh, how much can you bench? And a lot of us, I mean, Ed is probably one of the first guys I've heard say that he trains bench that much, especially with a wider grip, because it's very easy to tear your pec. And a pec tear, you're probably looking at a year, maybe close to a year recovery on that if it's a major tear. So it's just not worth the risk, right? Like, so I get the carryover from doing more of a close grip bench press training, and normally I don't, I would go maybe down to a triple, you know, something like that, and you know, with that I'm, you know, probably close to 500 pounds, you know, so, you know, I mean, but I don't really go where, I don't really drop down to where I'm doing a single, because for me, especially going with a wider grip on the bench press, I trained it earlier on in my career, and I didn't feel like there was much of a carryover to my overhead press. So it just depends on the guy, but then I've talked to other guys that say if they don't bench press big, they feel like their overhead goes down. So it's just probably, I mean, you're probably dealing a little bit with body type. You know, Ed's you know, Ed's a massive presser. Massive presser. You know, the strict press is ridiculous. So it's, and for him, that probably carries over very well. You know?
True, man. I mean, whenever we look at Terry, you'll be able to answer this. In fact, you'll all probably be able to answer this. Is that whenever you become that Goliath mammoth of a man, that you're huge, right? You're obviously like amongst the world's strongest men, the planet's strongest men. What is each of your weaknesses?
Mine's probably alcohol. I think that's the only downside from coming from a rugby background.
Good one. But no, like, what if you, like, the only thing that triggered that question is because you said it did a close grip press, so you want to do the anteriors and that. So I'm guessing that the reason to do that is in correlation with an overhead log press. Wouldn't you make you stronger, right? So the reason you're doing that is because you want to do this better. So you feel like this is maybe one of your weakest areas, no?
So I mean, that's a very good question. Like one thing that I've always tried to do, and I think a lot of the top guys in strongman, I mean, here's the key. The key is to not have any weaknesses. So if you go to a contest, they can throw any events at us, and I mean, for me, it's you know, in the finals of Worlds is to be able to place top 3 in every single event, you know, because typically speaking, you know, it's getting very competitive, and if you're normally, probably in one event, if you drop out of the top 3, you're probably not going to win, you know. So, and you're exactly right. So the log press, I mean, from the start of my career, I was always very functionally strong with like stones and tire flip and truck pull and basically almost everything but overhead, right? So like my back was very strong, my legs were very strong, and that carried me through most stuff. But then, you know, things like log press, you know, for example, I've had to work, it's probably taken me, you know, I mean, we're going on probably 6-7 years to get that built up to where it's at, and I've worked extremely hard at it. And, you know, so like going to the Arnold this year, one of my big goals was, they have a big log press there, a 200 kilo log for reps overhead, and I'd actually failed that log the last 2 years. And so coming into this, I changed my training up a little bit, threw in a little bit more of that stuff, and I pressed that 200 kilo log for 2 reps which was a huge.
How much did it weigh?
200 kilos. Yeah. So from the ground to overhead twice, and I cleaned a third one, but you know that's like a big area where I have to with you know the other guys trying to come top 3 on a press for me is a huge challenge. Yeah. You know, but you know everybody's got their certain weaknesses, and you know that's really with World's Strongest Man now. It's like when we get the events thrown at us, you know, it's one of those things where if they put a certain event in, it's gonna be a favorite of somebody, right? Sure, so it's kind of like that mix of events is so important, and I think that you know a lot of times
it sort of keeps you on your toes, kind of.
Yeah, they need to. Well, I think they need to put a little bit more thought into some of the events sometimes with World's Strongest Man, because like Terry said, sometimes it gets a little bit too much into TV instead of being.
And that's we need to sells everything, right?
We need to find out who the strongest man on the planet is. You know, and if you throw sometimes events that look good on TV, you have to have a good mix, right? You have to have a good mix, or else you're going to end up with a contest that's not complete. And you know, if you're going to crown somebody World's Strongest Man, then they better be the world's strongest man. Yeah.
Terry, what would you say that one of your weaknesses are? We figured out that it's an overhead press.
I'm exactly the same. I mean, actually, me and Brian have got very sort of similar strengths and weaknesses. And yeah, I mean, obviously Brian was saying it's took him 6-7 years to do a 200 kilo log press for a couple of reps, and I've never done that in 10 years, you know, so it's certainly always been my weakness. I mean, my best ever is like in training 192.5 kilos, but that is when, you know, my pressing was his absolute best in the gym in perfect conditions, because that's another thing a lot of people sometimes forget about is when we're doing a lot of these events, you're tired from all the other events you've done, and maybe the sun's in your eyes when you're pressing, you know, it's all little things can throw you off. I mean, I know a lot of the time, even with a log pressing, when we stood there and the clouds are moving over when you're outside, it's a lot different to doing it inside in the gym. And yeah, I mean, going back to what Brian said about the mix of the events, I mean, between himself and Zadrunas, who, in my opinion, are the best two in the world at the moment by a fair margin, you could almost pick which one of them was going to win by selecting certain events. Yeah. And that's why I totally agree with what Brian's saying. It really does need to be selected so well to make sure that every strength is covered, you know, because you could push the event slightly to one way and almost favour one guy over another. I'm not saying that happens, but it could be the case. I think it's really important that every strength is covered, and sometimes with some of the lower level competitions, you do see competitions that are very obviously tailored towards certain guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty opposite to these guys, to be honest.
So overhead press is a strength for you?
Yeah, really.
You can tell because you have like that Tasmanian devil kind of a look, you know?
Yeah, the Mong look.
The big shoulder, the big traps, big round boys.
The no neck look.
Yeah, but again, I think that comes down to background. I'm really rubbish at moving events. I think these guys, because rugby and basketball is, if you think about it, very similar. You know, you're always dropping, turning,
very fundamental, move forward, back, sideways.
It really builds the core, the legs, the stability. Which, you know, I didn't have that with swimming, because, you know, you're floppy in the water, you're just concentrating on going in a straight line. You need to,
you're very working in the size of the plane.
Yeah, so that's my weakness, and I'm working really hard at the minute to sort of bring mobility up. Sort of running with a yoke on my back, you know, running with 500 kilos on your back is a pretty tough feat of strength for me at the minute. But, you know, for Brian and Terry, it's a lot easier for them, and I think it is down to that core background of you know, a good sport behind you, basically.
I think like Ed just touched on it a little bit there. I think when we say we've got a weakness, we're still really, really strong on those events. Like Ed's saying, his yoke's a weak event, but he can still pick up 500 kilos and move with it. You know, it's just that. I mean, the level of the guys at World's Strongest Man is just insane at the moment. And if you've got a weak event, all it means is you're not, you know, lifting what, you know. There's 5 guys in the world that can lift it better, and that you would consider as a weakness.
Yeah, that's insane, man. And like Ronnie Coleman was here, who was like the 8-time Mr. Olympia, and his heaviest squat was 800 pounds.
We do that for reps.
I know, right? for reps.
What was the rep at the Worlds?
What I was just going to say, what was the rep on a squat for the Worlds?
There was a 7.